we are going to talk about Joe Exotic. His chart kind of makes me go a little bit insane. Like looking at it, I start to like wonder and question myself. Like, am I a person? Do I go to this school? Like, why am I here? Who is this person I'm talking to? Oh, that's me. It's my phone. Because I record on my phone. Why don't I have a camera? Who has cameras? What on earth am I doing? Hey all you cool cats and kittens, it's Alyssa here, talking to you about the one Tiger King, Joe Exotic's natal chart. So I had this really great idea when I first started reading charts on my channel that I was only going to do like beautiful, creative, artistic, deep, powerful souls that I was like in love with on my channel to just really like further the divine feminine energy. And then I saw Tiger King and I just like took that idea and I like threw it in the fucking garbage. I wanted to read his chart. I also want to read Carol's chart really badly, but we don't know her birth time. We know Joe's. So I'm going to pass on Carol. Plus, I think Carol's chart would make me really angry. We are going to talk about Joe Exotic. So I asked you guys on Instagram and it was like a resounding fuck yes. And then I was like, okay, so what do we want to talk about? Like where do we want to go with this person, right? And so I asked you guys on Instagram again to give me some questions so that I could answer them. So this is more a little interactive chart reading here. We're gonna start with me just kind of looking over it for a minute, telling you some things, and then I'm gonna answer these questions because I think they're the questions that most people have about him. He was born March 5th, 1963 at 9:14 p.m. in Garden City, Kansas. This gives him a Libra rising, his moon in Cancer, and his sun in Pisces. And I do know that many people were very shocked to find that out because these are very passive signs. Like he has the three most passive signs together. He's a receptacle. Okay, he's very receptive. He's receptacle, but he kind of acts more like he's protruding, like he's a aggressor, basically because he's got that Mars and Leo in the 10th house. And the 10th house is his public image. Granted, his moon is in his 10th house in Cancer, and his midheaven's Cancer. So even that Cancer midheaven, by the way, it makes you a cuddly motherfucker, okay? You could be like a serial killer with a Cancer midheaven. There's still going to be a lot of people who feel like they just want to hug you. And his moon's right there too in Cancer, conjunct his North Node, which is a form of his destiny. This is called a Rahu moon person. A lot of very spiritual people are Rahu moons. A lot of weirdos are Rahu moon. I'm Rahu moon. We kind of live in our own little world.
So from personal experience, I can tell you that Rahu moon, that's a VA term, but I kind of like the way it says it. It says, I have a North Node with my moon. I say Rahu moon, and wow, this cut off so much air. Except I explained it so nice. I had way more air invested in talking about Rahu moon, but whatever. Sorry.
His chart kind of makes me go a little bit insane. I'm trying really hard to like just focus and it's making me have a headache. Yeah, the energy off of it is really weird. But okay, yeah, let's just go into this. So he's this cuddly persona that people really want to help and hold, and even though he's a weirdo, and his moon or his Mars and Leo in the 10th is a big reason why people, I think they see that Leo energy in him. Even be like a big cat thing, like here his Mars energy, that's his only masculine energy he has left, and it's in Leo. He gets his masculinity from the cats, from the big cats. This is everything to him. If he doesn't have them, he's not a man, okay? He just feels almost, it's like that broken divine feminine energy, right? Where we think that women are just smaller, weaker, negative spaces that you can hurt and abuse and take advantage of whenever you feel like, because they're just not the stronger ones. They're not the ones who are going to rule the world. They don't really have a lot of power, like broken feminine energy. And that's what Joe has all over the place. So if the feminine was empowered in this world, Joe would have been empowered throughout his life. But because it's not, the only thing he sort of anchors on is this Mars and Leo. So in the same vein of like a little man syndrome, having to buy a big fucking truck, he's got big cats because it's Leo. And it's in his 10th house, so this is what the world knows him by. I think that is like, that's the power of his broken chart. Now, I do want to say that this Leo Mars thing here, and just this whole vibe of needing to power up over stuff, I can see why he is very ruthless and has probably done some pretty awful things to animals. I think it's a little bit more than a speculation, just looking at how his chart is playing out. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the claims about him and the way he treated animals is true, just because of how that's going. Hurt people, and in this case, he hurts animals too. So I'm going to answer some of these questions. But the first thing is, what is his mission on the planet? Well, his North Node is his destiny, which he may or may not achieve. And his sole purpose here is this midheaven. It's his 10th house, and his moon is the ruler of that with his North Node. So his destiny and his career, his public image are the same. There's a really important part about him because he rose to fame during the end of the world, right? And it was his Saturn return. He's meant to show Cancer-like emotions, feelings. In the most singular concept of it all, that's his mission on the planet, is to invoke feelings in others, to get people moving. Also, all that Cancer, when everybody's home, is kind of a big deal. He only really has the ability to reach his destiny when people have nothing to do but look at him. Because if you think about it too, he tried really, really hard his whole life to reach this, to get people to care about him, to give himself a following, to be famous, and to have the world embrace him with a warm hug. But people were too busy, are always too busy. And I think that kind of goes down, and it's why we have this feeling about him. And the Tigers, people are also too busy to kind of care about things like animals and people in their lives. All of this shit that the world had to stop to, enjoy, like your dog. People are now home with their dogs, right? They're home with their families, and we're all together in a way that we haven't been before. And so that part of that is like, he's included in that, and that's why he is famous, but it's also almost like he's a catalyst for it in some way. We're gonna move on and probably get back to that. What makes people gravitate towards him despite his many flaws? And a lot of it has to do with this Rahu moon in Cancer in his midheaven. Also that he's a Pisces conjunct Chiron. His sun conjunct Chiron, he's a healer. He heals people, okay? We are healed by watching him. People are healed when they're close to him. And if he uses that incorrectly, and that Pisces energy becomes like a dumpster fire, he can manipulate people really good with that. But at the same time, he's still healing them. So in a way, he's always giving his energy out to others. He doesn't seem to have the ability to heal himself at all. Like, he needs other people to heal him. So he heals people with the premise that they'll also heal him. And he brings them into his negative space, and holds them close and makes them feel good. This is why he can't be alone. Not just because he's a Libra rising and he has to have a relationship. It's also because he can't heal himself. He's so busy giving all of his energy away all the time. And in that, it is sad and it's painful, actually. This is one thing you guys didn't ask, and it was the first thing that I looked for because it is something important to me, so kind of trigger warning here, but he was sexually molested when he was 5, and that shows up in his chart in his 5th and 11th houses. You can see a lot of sexual abuse in these houses. He's got Chiron and his sun in Pisces there, and his Pluto and his Uranus are together in the opposite house, opposing his sun. Now, a lot of times I've seen Pluto and Uranus in the 5th house of someone who was molested as a child. Having them both together in the 11th opposite his sun, which is also conjunct Chiron, is more. It also shows that. And it was something that psychologically affected him, but a lot of times because when the Pluto and the Uranus are together in the 5th, and this isn't everybody, this doesn't guarantee this, okay? So, sidetrack, an astrologer one time asked me, what to do with this karmic dilemma, because he was reading the chart of a girl to her parents, and he knew that it was in her karmic future to be molested. And he didn't know if he should tell them. And I was like, what the fuck? You think you can't change your stars from being abused sexually as a child to being protected and safe and having that kind of come into something else? So I just want you to know that it doesn't mean that guarantee that, but it is something. So if you have that in your chart, again, is an indicator of that, or some form of trauma that you go through in while you're growing up in your childhood years, because it's a fifth house. So the fact that it's 11th house opposite is something that is different with Joe Exotic, because instead of going inwards and sort of just losing his entire childhood, it's like he became a child the rest of his life. Like he got stuck outside of that because it's opposing. And he held on to all of the things from his youth. He couldn't grow up past that point because it was just too painful. So in his head, it is like he is this broken, sad little boy, and he is capable out of that pain to heal others. But again, he has nothing. He doesn't feel like he's anything without somebody next to him telling him that he's wonderful. And it is also why he goes for younger men, because they heal him more. They give him his youth in sort of like a vampire way. And it would make sense why his boyfriends would get heavier into drugs and why he would feed them that to keep them around, because he's taking from them. And so I did get a question about him, like, why is he stuck in the past? And this is it. His psychologically can't really get out of where he was when all these really painful things happened to him. And that does show up too, in the sense that, it's funny, like, he's ridiculous looking, okay? And that is true. I know a few people that went through some very painful trauma in their past that do very similar things. I knew a woman who was abused in the early 90s by her boyfriend, and she, to this day, wears like shoulder pads and bright red lipstick with crimped hair. You know, like this energy that like 80s, 90s is still on her. And it always just depends on your chart, because everyone handles trauma and abuse differently. Some people can seem completely normal. Some people really do go back into it, and that does show up in your chart. And so in this sense, it's like his 5th house, his 11th house divide, his childhood, what he's holding on to when he grows, and how he expands his life. It's all showing up in a very traumatic way. So looking at him and how hilarious he looks, it's because of his trauma. It doesn't take away from the fact that it's funny. So I don't want to like make you feel bad about any of that stuff. He's ridiculous. He's a ridiculous character, and this is how he copes with all of that shit. And his chart's very heavy, okay? It's like really heavy. Another thing, we'll move on from that for a little while. Why do I like him? Okay, so I kind of already answered this one, but you like him because he's gonna heal you. He heals the part of you in the way that he couldn't heal himself. And he does make you want to hold him in some way. He makes you want to just like be around him, feel like that energy. He's magnetic, and Libra risings are pretty magnetic. His Venus is with his South Node, kind of out of sign, but he's a natural Venusian type man. Like he's got a lot of that charm, that anything that you could think that goes with the Venus energy, charm, charisma, wit, attractiveness, even if you're not attractive, you know, always Venus-y people, they might not seem like traditionally attractive, but they have that energy that you're just like, oh wow, they're beautiful, and they light up a room or some way. And I believe that he lights up a room. I believe he walks into the room and people are taken by him. And there might have been a time that if he didn't look so insane, he was probably very handsome, but you know, he looks insane. So he wasn't accepted by his dad, so what's his Saturn? Interestingly enough, he's going through his 2nd Saturn return right now, and he rose to fame during that. Like right when Saturn went into Aquarius was like his big thing. And so this does show you that Tiger King, this part, is specifically karmically involved with him. Like his Saturn return brought this forward. It gave him what he's always wanted, which is a weird thing when Saturn gives you what you always wanted. But sometimes in this case, I do think it's like a be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. He wanted it his whole life, and now he has it. Seems like he really is happy that this is happening. He's in jail and he's working with people to like prolong his fame and stuff. He's happy that people like him. Obviously, Saturn and Aquarius people do have a hard time with their fathers because it's opposite the Leo energy. There's a feeling in Saturn and Aquarius like you're not special because no one's special. And so when I look at where this is, and it's square Neptune, it's conjunct his Mercury, well, like a wide orb conjunction, but it's still in Aquarius. His dad made him feel like he couldn't think. He doesn't really have a lot of rose-colored glasses when it comes to life. Life's a bitch, and then you die. That looks like he probably did escape a lot, and obviously you go through trauma, you probably learned how to escape. So his dad didn't like that he wasn't present and would try to like probably really hurt that out of him, bring him down a peg, bring him back into reality, not realizing that, you know, all a Pisces, Libra, rising, Cancer moon wants is love. And his Saturn showing that, yeah, he didn't get that. Obviously, we know that, but it looks like he's getting, this is the thing. We replace our need for our father's love with public love. As because the father also falls in the 10th house, which is the public. So here we have his North Node in the 10th, so that can be an indicator of not having a good relationship with your father. His moon's there too, which can mean an indicator of having a bad relationship with your mother, or a weird relationship with your mother. And he's got all this stuff going on, so what does he want to replace it with? He wants to replace it with fame. His father hated him, so he feels that if he's accepted by the world, he'll feel better. And I think this is where I'm getting that whole be careful what you wish for thing, because the love of everyone and fame does not fill the void of the loss of a father. The only thing that actually really does sometimes can be getting all of what you want and getting to that end point and being like, well, that was never really what I wanted. I just really wanted to learn how to accept myself. I just wanted to be happy. I just wanted to feel loved in general, and I wanted to know that there's a reason for my existence. If this could, because at this point, I do think like a lot of Pisces energy, Neptune energy, and the Neptune square Saturn, he could be in an illusion for the rest of his life and feel that this is it. And it kind of reminds me of Sunset Boulevard when she's like walking down and she's like, you know, I'm ready for my close-up, and she's going to jail, and she's just like, thank God, you know, like that kind of energy I do see in his chart, that he's just going to tell himself that this is the best thing that ever happened. He's finally getting what he wants and that he likes it, and it's gonna maybe split his brain the last final time. There's just a lot of junk going on. And if that's the case and he's gotten to that point, I mean, it's kind of like, it's like a bittersweet ending for him in that way. Because he's not old, you know, he's halfway done with his life, but there's this old quality about him that he's like lost a lot of his life. Like I said, I'm having a great time reading this. It's so heavy. Neptune is a major issue. Yes, obviously it's square Saturn. It's actually funny because it's just square Saturn, but it is the ruler of his sun. So, and his Chiron, obviously here, and his Jupiter. I didn't even see his Jupiter there. There's like so much going on. So his Jupiter is also in Pisces, so that just expands that Pisces behavior, expands that Neptune. He just doesn't have a grip on reality. And to me, it looks like because it is the ruler of this Pisces sun with Chiron that's in the 5th house and it's opposing the Pluto, it just all looks like it relates to his trauma. His trauma made him escape reality. He doesn't want reality. And it's really sad. So I see it, I'm like, all this shit he went through, and if there was just love for him, he's needed a little bit of love as a child, and he didn't get it. He didn't get what he needed. He didn't get help. He didn't get healed. He had to deal with it himself, and as a child, when we deal with things ourselves, we do it in a very psychologically damaging way. We split from it, and we go off further and further outside of reality, and his father didn't stabilize him at all. In fact, was like mad at him for it. Mad at him for doing something that he really had no control over. No one in his life made him feel like feminine energy was powerful. So that's what he's got there. How did he have a hot husband? He takes broken men in. That's his thing, obviously. That goes back to Pisces, Chiron, conjunct Sun, and there's Jupiter there. He's just so healing, and he takes them in like wounded animals. And I mean, you see that, like, what's his face? Was that Travis, the bigger one? The big dude? He's such a man, and he likes the straight men because these men are making him feel like he could be a man too. It's almost like a belonging, like the cats. These men to bend to his will could make him feel powerful and much more masculine. Does his moon come out in his interactions? When you have Rahu moon, it does. It absolutely. Because I already touched on it, so I'll just go back to it. But The Rahu Moon idea is that you're such a fucking weirdo. Your reality, your emotions, they're all based on something new that you're trying to discover. And so you will go out and try to do a whole bunch of different things, try out different things, be an innovator in ways too. And he innovated certain things. Whether or not it was good or bad is judgment, I guess. But that kind of stuff. And so he wanted to be powerful. And the moon in Cancer with the North Node and the Mars in Leo, and the Mars in Leo is retrograde. This is probably why he was so angry and yelled all the time, because that moon would get very emotional and it would lead into that Leo Mars where he would get aggressive and just be a jackass. Also, what they say, he fired people just for shits and giggles, that kind of energy too. All of that goes into it. Did fame go to his head, or was it always strongly in the stars for him to be that way? Yeah. Yeah, both. He didn't need fame, and I think that's again, going back to that Saturn and Aquarius. He's going through a Saturn return. He doesn't need fame. He needs to be healed. He needs to be helped. He needs to be loved and real loved, and not this like fake fame thing. But the more he got, and the more people that knew him, and the more fans he got, the worse he got, the more mentally ill he got. It's because it didn't help him. It can't save him. Interestingly enough, okay, I'm going to go into this for a second. As far as like being mentally ill or like born mentally ill or something, I feel like, looking at his chart and from what I know, from everything that I've studied, that he's not mentally ill from like birth or anything. It's not like a problem there. It really was trauma that stemmed from abuse that caused him to escape reality. His Venus rules his first house and his 8th house, and that's in the 4th. There are things that he brings home with him. A lot of control, a lot of power issues he has. His Sun rules the 11th and is in the 5th. So his Sun is opposite the house that it rules, which gives him gives him like a lot of power, especially because it's in the 11th house, and that like gives him the ability to expand his life. And it's in the reverse sign. So he has like a full moon quality, meaning he's kind of can do a lot. He's multi-talented, which is funny because he got someone else to sing his songs for him, but he still went out and did all that stuff. Like, he did so many different things, and that's a big indicator of that. So there's a lot of things in his chart too that show you that he actually was an innovator and an originator and creative. Those things are there. They're expressed weirdly, one, because he's got Saturn and Aquarius just in general, and because of the escape from reality and the never growing old and the hatred of his feminine qualities. But I don't know. I'm interested to see like what happens with him and how long the fame lasts, because that's the thing about fame too. You get it one time and then you lose it, and then you're just like, well, that was all I had, and then you feel like alone and invisible again. And he's gonna go through some of those ups and downs, because I don't think that, this is the thing though about his fame. It's like he was famous during like the end of the world. Like, he's the biggest celebrity at the end of the world. Like, we will remember him forever. He'll be written about in history books, probably. And so the solidification of that feeling, it's like that understanding. It's almost like his mission was to close out the age of Pisces. All of the negative deception, all the trauma, all of the weird Neptune stuff, and being like, this is what rose out of that. This is the divine feminine all being pushed down in his chart in a masculine energy. This is how backwards men have become, because men haven't even been allowed to explore their feminine side, let alone women. So women have become invisible, and men have just been destroying their lives and the planet. And this is what we have with him. He's like a representation of that. So it's less like I'm getting the fact that he's needed in any way. I don't think he's needed in society, to be honest. That was a harsh thing that I said, but I don't think, like, sometimes you're like, this person's going to push the world further. I don't think he pushes the world further. I think he shows us what we're leaving behind. I think he shows us what our culture did. I think he shows us everything about the problem with the way life used to be. And we can't live that way anymore. And whether or not it's conscious or unconscious, it's going to alter our future. and he will be remembered. And it's just kind of an interesting thing. Anyway, that is his chart. It's probably the weirdest chart reading I've ever given. Just too weird. Anyway, thank you guys, and I will talk to you later. Bye.